Okay, if you are a trainer or a coach or somebody responsible for bringing out the best in other people, you might be a leader in an organization, you might be in HR, you might be in learning and development, you might be a coach or a trainer working internally or out externally with clients. So if you're here, that means that you're either interested in neuroscience or you're looking at ways that you can make what you're already doing better. And neuroscience is exactly that. It takes your coaching and your training interventions to the next level. And the reason is there's a wealth of evidence that supports this that now shows us that neuroscience enhances the effectiveness and the impact of the practices that you're already doing. And the reason is you gain a much deeper understanding of the brain and its functions, and this allows you to understand at a much deeper level human behavior and how we learn and how we perform. And when we take that knowledge and we incorporate it into our coaching and our training, this is where practitioners are going to be able to create more tailored and more evidence-based interventions to promote sustainable growth and development. So things are working more often, things are lasting longer, we're getting people to stick around for longer, and they're happier because everybody's getting results. And one of the key reasons that integrating neuroscience into these types of interventions is so great is it allows us to optimize learning and skill acquisition. And this is because of neuroplasticity. And you've probably heard that word already, and you might even know a little bit about it. And this is really just all about how your brain is able to change and adapt. And when we're aware of how that happens, this is when we can implement strategies that promote effective learning, and it promotes effective changes and effective adapting. And that facilitates that skill acquisition, and that supports that long-term behavioral change. We also know a lot more about the brain-body connection and how other things outside of us impact us. These can be things like nutrition or exercise or sleep, but it can also be our physical and our digital environment. And so when we incorporate those things, we're able to address the role that they all play in things like memory consolidation, overall brain performance, for example, balancing neurotransmitters, and all of these things affect our ability to perform every single day. So again, we're getting a lot more targeted, and I want you to think about it like fuel in a car. We need to put the right fuel in, and if you go and put diesel in a petrol car, it's going to break it. It's not going to go. It'll run for a little bit until the old stuff in the tank sort of gets all used up, but eventually it's going to seize the engine and you're going to have to drain it, and you might even have to replace things. And that's the equivalent of burnout. Trying to do these things with the wrong fuel. It might work for a little bit of the time, but unless we get the right premium fuel in there that's designed for that vehicle, that's designed for the outcomes that we want, we're not going to get these long-lasting changes that we need. And that's why we look to neuroscience. And I'm going to give you some examples, some real-world examples, so that because this isn't just theoretical, this is things that actually work in the real world. So I will give you some examples as well. But let's talk about other areas like emotions and motivation and mindset. These are hugely important parts of coaching and training. We know that all of them are important, and we know that we do work on these things as well. But when we approach it from a neuroscience perspective, we understand the neural mechanisms that underlie emotions. And this highlights the importance of things like emotional regulation and resilience. And we also understand how to achieve those things for different people at different parts of their life as well. So when we get into the neurobiology of emotions, this is where we can now effectively help people to manage those emotions, to cultivate even things like motivation and that growth mindset that we all love so much. Now, what about other areas? What about the enablers, things like communication and things like influence? Well, this is where neuroscience is going to show you how your brain processes and responds to communication, both verbal and non-verbal. And when we understand these neural mechanisms, this is where we can employ effective communication strategies that resonate with that individual's brain's processing. And this leads to improved engagement, better comprehension, and better retention of information as well. So all of this stuff is facilitating that transfer of knowledge. It's all making them more engaged. It's making everybody that's involved enjoy the process more and get more out of it, because we're able to connect better, we're able to build better rapport, and we're able to enhance that transfer in a very organic way in which the brain accepts, and not only does the brain accept, but the brain promotes these changes as well. And really, it comes down to this idea of getting a lot more targeted with our approach, being able to foster a more holistic and a multidisciplinary approach, which allows us for a more tailored approach. It allows us to be more targeted and more effective. And when we look at neuroscience, and I've studied neuroscience at a university study and at a university level, at a PhD level, and I've also gone out and I've been working in the field, in the commercial area for quite a while as well. And they don't just teach us about neuroscience. Neuroscience draws from a lot of different various fields, which can include psychology, it can include biology, it includes the medical space, it includes cognitive sciences, molecular sciences as well. And my PhD even was in neurosciences and organizational behavior and management and strategy. And so it's all of these areas and all of these different disciplines coming together. And so I always say neuroscience isn't the answer. Neuroscience just helps us go deeper on the areas that we know, and it adds depth and it adds impact to what we're already doing. So by incorporating neuroscience, you're actually incorporating an interdisciplinary knowledge-based approach that gives you that broader perspective and that gives you different insights from these other relevant disciplines. We can look at the mind, we can look at the physiological changes, we can look at it from an organizational setting, we can look at it from a social setting as well. And this allows us for a more comprehensive understanding of people's needs, of their challenges, of their potential, and it allows us as practitioners to develop more effective and well-rounded interventions. And I want to give you a few examples right now. So let's talk about some common ones. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the traditional coaching approach or the traditional training approach. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the neuroscience, and then I'm going to tell you why it matters, basically. So let's look at one. Let's talk about problem number one, a lack of motivation or struggling to achieve goals. We all know this one. We've all dealt with this one. Now, in a traditional coaching and training approach, what's the focus? What are the things that you do? We set goals, we create action plans, and we provide accountability. They're probably the big three. And in order to do that, we use different motivational techniques like positive reinforcement, goal visualization, and progress tracking to be able to support people in achieving their goals. Now, is any of that wrong? No, not at all. It's not about throwing all of that out. It's about going deeper and using our existing frameworks to get better results. So when we integrate the neuroscientific principles and frameworks, coaches, trainers, HR people, you're able to gain a deeper understanding of the neural mechanisms that underlie motivation. And especially when it comes to motivation, actually, let me just quickly check this. When it comes to motivation and goal setting is all about motivation. Goal setting actually was first really set up, I guess, or studied in an academic sense in, I think, the 1970s by a guy called Locke. And it was called the goal setting theory of motivation. And so when we talk about goals, people always go straight to the goals, and let's talk about the goals. It's not about the goals. It's about the motivation that the goals give us. And 1960s, it was Edwin Locke that first came up with this goal setting theory of motivation. And when we understand it from a neuroscientific principle, this is when we're able to go back to the source and we're able to go back to why things were working in the first place. You might be there talking to your team, talking to your people about visualization and positive talk, but what we're really looking at is how is motivation influenced by the release of different neurotransmitters like dopamine, and these are involved in reward processing and goal-directed behavior. So when we approach it from a neuroscientific perspective, this is where we can develop strategies that enhance motivation, which is the key to goal setting, and this leverages the brain's reward system through effective goal setting, and we still break it down into these smaller manageable tasks, and we help clients to understand how their mindset and their beliefs impact that motivation. And we do that by addressing the neural pathways that are involved in things like self-efficacy and self-beliefs. And when we address those underlying neural processes, it allows us to understand the brain's reward system, it allows our clients to understand the brain's reward system, and it allows us to tailor interventions that are going to activate that reward system, that are going to activate the release of dopamine and increase intrinsic motivation. And it's this deeper understanding that builds on your existing knowledge that is going to allow you to design strategies that are more effective and more impactful. And this is going to lead to increased client engagement and also, most importantly, easier and more common goal achievement. And the reason is you're going to be able to set goals that align with your client's values, and it activates what's important to them. And when we recognize that motivation is just this chemical response to, is the reward worth the resources I'm going to commit to this? This is where we can enhance motivation and we can enhance commitment to that goal. We also get to do other things, like we can look at willpower and self-control, and we can help clients to navigate challenges and motivate and maintain that motivation even in the face of obstacles. Now, what about something like emotional regulation or stress management? Now, we all probably talk a lot about this, and stress management is still one of the big things that we deal with at Brilliance Lab on an ongoing basis. So in a traditional coaching and training approach, what kind of techniques do you use? Things like cognitive reframing, mindfulness, stress management, these kinds of things we usually use to help people regulate their emotions and manage stress. We also probably provide some different tools and some different strategies for recognizing and addressing those negative emotions and stresses. That's great. That's a fantastic place to start. But we can get more effective and we can get more targeted and we can get more impactful. And we do that again by understanding those neural mechanisms that drive the emotions and drive the stress responses. And this is where you're going to be able to educate your clients and your team members on the different brain regions that are involved in emotional processing, like the amygdala and like the prefrontal cortex. And you're going to be able to educate them on how these different areas interact to influence emotional regulation. And by explaining the impact of stress on the brain's functioning and the release of stress hormones like cortisol, for example, this is how you're going to be able to help people you're going to be able to develop effective strategies to help people to regulate their emotions and to regulate their stress. And it's all about those targeted, science-backed approaches to being able to do these things. When we understand the underlying neurobiology of emotions, this is where we can bring in those evidence-based techniques that are going to work every time to directly influence the brain's emotional processing. For example, things like body-centered practices, deep breathing, for example, this engages the body's parasympathetic response, and this promotes relaxation and emotional regulation. It also promotes other things like open-mindedness, so people are more willing to accept what we're telling them. And this is how we can enhance emotional resilience. And it sounds funny that just by educating people, we're going to change things. So why does that happen? Well, we need to know things to care, and we need to care about things to want to make changes. And in terms of your performance and your optimization and your growth, by being able to get educated on these areas, it actually strengthens the neural pathways and the brain connectivity that we need to be able to make informed decisions and to be able to make the right decisions for us. And this leads to us developing better skills and better overall well-being. I'll give you one more example, and then I'll wrap up, because I want you guys to jump into a course and I want you to learn about these things, and I want you to be able to take all of this stuff, which sounds very theoretical and a little bit confusing at the start, but we're going to break it down and we're going to make it really simple and easy to understand and really simple and easy to apply. And again, it's not about changing what you're doing. It's about going deeper on what you're doing. You're probably dealing with development and performance optimization with team members or with clients as well. So how would you do this in a traditional setting? In traditional coaching and training, we do things like goal setting. We do things like time management. We do performance feedback. And we use all of those things to try and boost this performance. Now, are those things wrong? No, definitely not. We want to improve productivity. We want to improve concentration. We want to develop skills. And we know that that comes through training and practice. But when we approach it and when we integrate this neuroscience into what we're already doing, we're able to get some really valuable insights into our cognitive processes, into our attentional mechanisms, and into other areas like our memory formation. So this is now where you're going to be able to explain to your clients the neural underpinnings of that attention. Why are you not able to pay attention? And it allows us a different approach to things. For example, when we talk about attention, attention comes down a lot to being able to block out distractions and provide gates to stop those distractions from coming in. Now, if you're in an environment where you're quite stressed and there is that cortisol being pumped all around your brain and to your different organs, that might be a little bit harder. If you're in a toxic environment where you're even stressed, that's going to be harder, because what it actually does is it sort of short circuits a lot of our stress and our distraction circuits in our prefrontal cortex. And this is where a lot of this is responsible for our executive functioning, so our attention and our decision making and the things that make us uniquely human. We have a much, much bigger prefrontal cortex than other animals, and it's because we've developed it to be able to do these things like critical thinking over a few thousand years. But when we get in these environments that are stressful, or our neurotransmitters are out of balance, it short circuits all of that hard work that evolution's done, and it actually reverts those functions like our decision making back to lesser evolved structures inside our brain. And this can include things like our amygdala. And our amygdala is responsible for our fight or flight response. So if you're in that environment and you're trying to pay attention and you're trying to make good decisions and you're trying to use this prefrontal cortex, but there's other things that are happening outside of that, well, what's actually going to happen is that same decision making is going to revert back to that amygdala, and you're going to go into fight or flight response. All of this hard work that evolution has done to make you a critically thinking decision making machine goes out the window, and we go back to an animal that just wants to fight, or we just want to run away. So when we understand neuroscience and we integrate it into what we're doing, we develop targeted interventions that optimize our brain performance and enhance our focus and promote efficient learning and memory retention. And it's because it allows us to develop a more nuanced understanding of the brain and how to enhance them and how they're putting roadblocks up into how we want to be successful. I love mindfulness. Mindfulness is great, but something like stress, we might tell somebody to go and practice some deep breathing. We might say, you need to go and practice some mindfulness. How do we know what they really need? Do they need more dopamine? Do they need more oxytocin at that point? Do they need more serotonin? Maybe they need some more acetylcholine or even some more glutamate to actually have the right balance to be able to get the results. So again, it comes back to the fuel. If we're not using the right type of fuel for the machine, then we're not going to be able to get that machine running. And even if we do get it running, it's going to be spluttering and and it's not going to be working to its full capacity. So this is about developing that targeted and personalized response and approach so that we know what's happening, we can identify what's happening, and we can put into practice strategies that are nuanced and personalized to this particular situation, because we're aware of it, because our clients are aware of it, and that allows us to make more informed responses to get better outcomes, more effective and more impactful. So if you want to know if integrating neuroscience into your coaching and training interventions is the right way to go, it definitely is. This is the future, and it's already here. So if you want to start to integrate it, this is how you can fine-tune your interventions. This is how you can provide those evidence-based strategies, how you can foster insight and awareness, how you can enhance your clients' engagements and also their motivation, and ultimately tailor interventions to individual needs so that you can provide personalized responses that are going to work every single time because they're built and designed for that person, not just a general approach that we use and it works most of the time or some of the time. So this allows you to achieve better results, be more effective, be more impactful, make more informed decisions, and also to experience better growth, experience better discovery, better synchrony by aligning these practices with the natural function of the brain. So we're starting to swim with the tide and not against the tide. And that's really important. If you want to know how you can integrate these into your practice, join our trainer boot camp. This is going to give you all of the fundamental information that you need to be able to learn this knowledge, put it into practice, and actually get those results. And that's what we do in the Trainer Boot Camp. It's a really great program. It's going to give you a really solid foundation for how you can step up your game and take what you're already doing to the next level. It's not about throwing everything out. It's about developing and growing and getting better and more effective and more impactful with what you do. And we know that that's what you want. So go out and get it done. The time is now. Don't wait. Start your neuroscience journey today and level yourself up so that you can be more effective and more impactful. Bye now.